November 30, 2017. A chilly day in Missouri. The tourist town of Branson, home of 3 pristine lakes, is getting ready for Christmas. Meanwhile, in one of its hotels, a couple gets arrested. A young woman and her significantly older boyfriend. They are Bailey Boswell and Aubrey Trail from Nebraska. The girl is only 23. Nice, regular features, minimal makeup. A high ponytail. Her hair has been recently dyed blonde. Her natural color is black. Her arms are thoroughly covered with tattoos. Handcuffs click shut on her wrists. And what is this little piece of paper the police found at the bottom of her purse? Written on it are the names of 13 women, and beside each name, some inscriptions. Healer, Sea Danger, Fire. Just a while ago, Bailey carried $5,000 in stolen gold coins across state lines. Her friend is no saint either. It was Trail who organized the antiques fraud scheme. But almost instantly, the gold coins pale into insignificance. The detectives shift their full attention to a whole other case. Meet Sydney Loofe, the complete opposite of Bailey. Fair-haired and blue-eyed, she looks a bit like a Barbie. She's of the same age as Bailey and works as a cashier at the Menards home improvement store in Lincoln. Sydney has a cat, and she often goes out with people she meets on Tinder. This is where she matched with a brunette named Audrey, and pretty soon, the girls met in real life. After getting back home, Sydney texted a friend about the coolest date she just had, and then started getting ready for the next one. Loofe put on her white lace shirt, made up her eyes and brows, and sent a selfie to a friend. This selfie, taken on November 15, 2017, happened to be her last one. The next day, Loofe didn't show up at work, and she didn't respond to her mother's texts. The family got worried, notified the police, and drove to Sydney's apartment. The place was empty except for the hungry cat. Later on, the mother told the police officers about her daughter's date. She saw it on Snapchat. As the detectives found out, Sydney's phone was last connected to a cell tower near the town of Wilbur, and then it went off the radar. Meanwhile, her sister, along with Sydney's friend Brooklyn, started an investigation of their own, using the instrument available, Tinder. First, they obtained Audrey's photo from Sydney's best friend. Then, Brooklyn set up a Tinder account filled with information very similar to that of Sydney's and started looking for the mysterious brunette. And they matched. Finally, Brooklyn managed to wrangle Audrey's phone number and turned it over to the police. The investigators left a message on the voicemail asking to call them back, and she did. More than that, the woman willingly told the police about their first date. She called herself Audrey Kane, but the detectives were sure that the name was fake. Even the number itself was fake. It was created through a particular app, Pinger, generally used for safe communication. After finding out the IP addresses on the fake number, they obtained the real one, which belonged to Bailey Boswell. The woman appeared to live in Wilbur together with Aubrey Trail, the man with a substantial criminal record. The detectives didn't find the couple in their rented flat, but soon, both Trail and Boswell emerged on social media, with a video posted on the Finding Sydney Loofe Facebook page. The camera faces Bailey, but the main speaker is the man.
You've already crucified us in the newspapers. You've already crucified us on Facebook. You know, in America, I sure thought it was a trial first, but I guess not.
Bailey keeps her mouth shut, and it's only in the end that she, in an almost childlike voice, adds that she did smoke some weed with Sydney.
I'm just kind of want to tell you what I've already told the Lincoln police more than one time. I met her on a Tuesday. We drove around Lincoln, smoked weed, had a great time. We hit it off. I dropped her off at home, picked her up the next night at her house. We drove around, smoked weed again.
In a couple of hours, the video vanishes. However, another 2 appear pretty soon. The first one contains even more of Trail's chatter. We are not to blame, he argues in a dragging monologue, and the second one was a much shorter video from Bailey. The woman doesn't show her face. Instead, she demonstrates her numerous tattoos.
I pretty much agree with everything that Aubrey said. I wanted to say it myself, but he wouldn't let me because I probably wouldn't have been so nice about it. But I do want to add one thing. That guy that lives across from us that supposedly said her phone was buried deep in our backyard. I like that. That's funny.
The following morning, the tattooed girl and her talkative boyfriend are arrested in Branson, Missouri. Bailey keeps her mouth shut and acts as if she's been long used to submission. There are no tears, no excuses. What goes on inside Bailey's mind stays behind some kind of iron curtain. That day though, Loofe was not the reason for their arrest. Remember how the couple had even more crimes on their list? Recently, they were transporting stolen gold coins from Kansas to Nebraska. Bailey prowled the antique collectors' gatherings, where she would snatch a piece or two. The stolen artifacts would softly sink to the bottom of her purse, down beside the list of women's names and their superpowers. While the charlatans are waiting for their trial, police search teams start finding body parts in the fields of Clay County, south central Nebraska. The remains are scattered. They are discovered in different places in 13 separate garbage bags. The victim is identified by a tattoo on the arm. Given the circumstances, a sadder inscription is hard to imagine. Everything would be wonderful someday. That was Sydney Loofe, and unfortunately, her days were over. Wow, Trail exclaimed once he saw the tattoo, apparently amazed at the rock-solid evidence. He took responsibility for the murder, but plenty of time had passed before he started giving out the details. According to Trail, he was a spiritual leader of a witch community, and Loofe's murder was a ritual. Her soul was released to the gods in a sacred spot. By the end of his trial, Aubrey presented another, additional explanation. He needed the women for his fraud schemes to sell the stolen antiques. Bailey met the victims on Tinder and took the chosen ones to Trail's apartment to join their witch harem. It was the territory of the Covenant. This cult, in which Bailey played the key part, was a weird mix of financial dependency, fraud schemes involving valuable historical artifacts, and sexual play, spiced up with witchcraft storytelling. In the center of it all, there's Trail, a vampire and a clairvoyant who can read people's minds. At least, that's how he presents himself to the freshly minted witches. The women wear no clothes in the apartment. These are the rules. Trail is supposed to be called Daddy, and Boswell is Mummy or Queen Witch. The women are to have sex with Trail as and when required. Moreover, they have to engage in sexual intercourse with one another. Meeting other men is out of the question. Going outside is possible under the condition that they check in with Trail every 3 hours to let him know where they are and what they're doing. Apart from that, murder is a frequent conversation topic. It all came to light when 3 female witnesses were called to testify before the court. As the first one stated, she had to ask for everything in the house, like if she could get a drink or go to the bathroom. If she didn't comply, she was punished. Once, she said, Trail put a belt around her neck and started choking her. Moreover, the crazy vampire hit her on the head repeatedly. She endured the tortures, as Trail promised to make her a witch. But to gain the power of levitation, she had to kill someone. One day in August, the woman drove to a Walmart in Beatrice. She had to meet her patrons there, but not for shopping. They wanted to take a look at a woman Bailey met, once again, on Tinder. The newly minted witch had to decide whether she would kill the woman or not. Instantly, her determination went poof, and the victim, quote, was saved for later. The second witness confessed she never believed in magic, but was tempted by the money. Become a witch? Okay, this must be a prelude of some sort. That's what the woman thought. She did follow the rules, but not for long. Finally, she managed to leave the Covenant, but never went to the police because she was scared. They knew where I lived, where my family was, she said in court. Aubrey mentioned before that he doesn't mind taking someone out if they're in his way. The third witness claimed that she was forced into dominant submissive relationships with Bailey. As for the fourth one, she ended up in the cemetery. To gain powers through someone's death, this was the keynote of the witch's cult. Apparently, Trail made it all up to brainwash his followers. At times though, it seemed like he genuinely believed in magic. Once, during a break in court proceedings, he led the investigators into a restroom and whispered feverishly in their ears, "Witches kill, a life for a life, and they gain more power when they kill." In their apartment, Trail and Boswell would discuss the ways to kill and torment people as lightly as a shopping list, and the witnesses testified in court that they were also supposed to have homicidal fantasies and share them, for instance, during sex. When the defense asked one of the 3 witnesses if she really wanted to feed on someone's last breath and become a witch, she said yes. How could anyone believe such nonsense? Margaret Tyler Singer, PhD, a clinical psychologist, interviewed more than 3,000 current and former cult members, their relatives and friends. Here is what she recalls from her conversations with a former cult leader.
His cult broke up, and he was most interested in talking with me about his experience of shock at how easy it was to con people, how easy it was to manipulate them, how easy it was to get them to give up their money to have sex with him or whoever he told them to.
In addition, Margaret Singer says that the followers of this one manipulator were rebellious people, often young adults, like Bailey Boswell. Did Bailey honestly believe that she was a witch? In court, she swore it. In cruelty, the Queen Witch surpassed all the other cult members. She had a special Bailey's killing bag with a hammer and pliers. There was a plastic sauna suit in it too, in which Bailey was supposed to commit murders. Later, the suit was found near Loofe's remains. Despite the women acting as if under a spell, the cult stuck together due to some pretty mundane factors: financial dependency and threats. The so-called witches had their rent paid and were also given various antiques to sell. The relationships between Bailey and Trail were kind of symbiotic. One of them was the leader, while the other preferred to be led. In court, the man would constantly point out that Bailey was not to blame. Once he shouted, "Bailey is innocent, and I curse you all," and then slashed his throat. However, the wound was not that deep, and soon enough, Trail was brought into the courtroom once more, or to be more specific, rolled in a wheelchair. He kept repeating that he killed Sydney and dismembered the body on his own, and Bailey had nothing to do with it. Were there any other options for Bailey though? Could her life have turned out differently if it wasn't for Trail? Bailey Boswell never had any luck with men. It all started with her drug-addicted father, who got killed when she was only an infant. She had no memories of it, but has always been aware of the fact. From what her mother told in court, Bailey was a diligent student, a friendly girl, and in high school she started playing basketball. She got a basketball scholarship at AIB School of Business, but her male coach often made her cry. In college, the girl was exposed to violence. Her mother said Bailey was sexually assaulted. The next in line of toxic men came her boyfriend, Freddie. He made her leave college and then started taking all her money for himself. It was the first time the abuse was evident and irrefutable. Bailey was often seen bruised, without money, or any self-esteem for that matter. Once, Freddie pushed his then pregnant girlfriend down the stairs. Even so, after all the vicious fights and arguments, they stayed together and had a child. But the baby girl didn't stay with her parents long. Social workers took her away from her father, who was always high on marijuana. Since then, Nola's been in the custody of Bailey's parents. Eventually, Bailey moves in with her parents too, but soon, a more violent and dominating person took Freddie's place. Yes, it was the man you've heard a lot about already, Aubrey Trail. It seems Bailey almost flung herself into the union with the abuser. It was not Trail who hooked Boswell. Quite possibly, it happened the other way around. Bailey found Aubrey online while looking for a sugar daddy. After a while, Trail bought her a car and asked her to come live with him in his apartment. He didn't let her communicate with her daughter, enforced crazy rules, and demanded intimacy at a moment's notice. And what about Bailey? It seems she didn't mind. Moreover, she invited other women to join them. For the newbies, she became the leader. It was a weird mix of mastership and submission. It might be so that Loofe wanted no part of it and paid for the refusal with her life. Trail was sentenced to death. But as for Bailey, the judges lacked unanimity. Boswell's attorney, Todd Lancaster, emphasized over and over again that the woman was fully psychologically dependent on Aubrey Trail.
At first I was grateful to him. Later I became afraid of him. I was afraid to refuse to follow his orders. I was afraid to even question him. I was afraid of what he would do to my daughter and my parents if I tried to leave him. He told me he would kill them. I truly believe he had special powers and knew at all times what I was doing and thinking.
Then why were the judges reluctant to reduce the severity of death punishment for Bailey Boswell? First, take a look at this video from surveillance cameras. What do you see? Right? These are Trail and Boswell by the counter. This is a store in Lincoln, the morning before Sydney Loofe was murdered. At 10:35 a.m., they're laying out a hacksaw, 2 gallons of bleach, a folding tree saw, 30-gallon plastic trash bags, and a razor-sharp utility knife. All those things were bought before they committed the murder. Therefore, both of them were thinking about it. They were planning for it. By the way, the former landlord of Trail and Boswell testified that there was a strong smell of bleach coming from their apartment the day after Sydney went missing. One more surveillance video sets the record straight. Before the murder, Trail came to the Menards store to take a look at Loofe. He glances over his shoulder. Too much of a coincidence. What was his plan then? To really kill the young cashier, or to simply drag her into his fraudy witchy den? It remains unknown. But he had some plan for sure, and it was Bailey who chose the victim. Boswell showed little emotion throughout the trial, but there she is, crying, while listening to her parents' statements. A bit of eyeliner, her hair is neat, and here she is apologizing to the Loofe family.
I am so sorry for everything that happened to Sydney Loofe and for my role in what happened to her. I am sorry for the pain Aubrey and I caused Sydney's family and friends.
It's hard to imagine that this very woman was dreaming about torturing people, that she was planning to kill someone. All in all, Bailey Boswell was sentenced to life in prison. A 3-judge panel determined her fate. 2 judges voted for death, and 1 for life. However, Nebraska laws require a unanimous decision, and so Bailey will spend the rest of her days behind bars. The last we heard of Bailey Boswell, she sends drawings to her daughter, communicates with her family, and helps her fellow convicted women. So, is she a victim of psychological abuse or a cold-blooded murderer? There's no straight answer to that. A human being is much too complex of a puzzle.